All right. Okay. It's definitely recording this time, I'm sure. I got no jokes for our theme song, Diamonds Ain't Forever by the CrashJonesBand. It's 8 days into COVID lockdown over here. I haven't shaved. I'm doing the best I can. My name is Scott Slonaker, by the way. This is the Up and In Dynasty League baseball podcast. What is this, episode 11, I think? To my left on the screen, Jaun Villareal, possessor of a lot more than a week's worth of beard. How's it going, Juan?
It's been a while.
Yeah. So how long did it
I'm
take
great,
you?
man. How would you have? Tell me about the lockdown.
Oh, geez.
I didn't. The beard? How long?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I've grown a beard before. It's been it's been a while. It's been a few years. But yeah, no, my son got COVID. He's fine. He's fine. We're just stuck here. He can't go to school for 10 days. This is day 8. Everybody's climbing the walls, and it's so, my kids are too young to get the vaccine just yet. That's just happening now. By the time you hear this, it will be something that they can do. But at that point, hey, he's had it, so he doesn't need it now. But I hope
antibodies.
I hope things. Yeah, we were real quick. We were hoping originally that my daughter would get it right away, because the way it works is if you're under lockdown and let's say on day 8 your other kid gets COVID, then you start over. They have to start over at day 1. They can't go back to school for another 10 days. So we were on the first couple of days, we were rooting for my daughter to go ahead and just test positive, but she apparently is made of really stern stuff and refuses to do so. So now, as we got to day 7 and 8, it's
nice.
Hey, pumpkin, maybe don't get COVID. so we can make it to day 10. It's like either get it now or don't get it, because in the middle is just more time that you don't get to go to school that we're paying for. So that's the story. We've been it's been like it's been like the slowest advent calendar ever. Just waiting, watching the time go by. Anyway,
Jesus, I can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, we have kids that are in the same age range. My son is turning 8 tomorrow. My daughter's 5. You have your twins are 7?
8. Well,
8.
Yeah, the 7. They're going to turn 8 in January.
Right.
They're going to they turn 8 in January. Yeah.
Right. And I know we've talked in the original interview we had that did not record properly about how that's a sign of how much time has gone
technical
by
issues.
with our technical issues, meaning I didn't hit record. Didn't realize it for an hour. Full disclosure. So I can distinctly remember back in the beginning days of the league when your twins were born, and there was a picture on your Facebook page of you holding both the babies, and and now they're in school and all that. That's how long it's been, and so it's been we finished up our 9th season of the league, and neither of us won. I had back-to-back league championships that were not defended this year. Instead, my brother won, and since he's the last owner, still present.
Congratulations! I didn't congratulate Brad, so I'm going to take this opportunity to publicly congratulate him for a tremendous 2021 season.
That's classy of you.
He and I think he totally destroyed me this year.
Oh yeah, well. He
matchup.
He beat me pretty good too. Yeah. So that's what happens when you're the champion. You got to win them all. So I bring that up because he and I haven't actually done our interview episode yet, and so we will soon. Hopefully, it'll probably be the next one after this. Nice. So I will passive aggressively congratulate him at that time. So. Anyway, but I know you have had some success in our league over the years. I know you finished in the top 3 a couple times at least. Did you ever win? I haven't checked.
I think one time.
You did
one time. I think. Yeah.
I don't do research for this stuff, so
yeah. No. Win. I've never won.
Oh, okay.
No,
I know you finished in the top three, though. I know
it. Place is third. I think third.
Okay. Yeah. We. It's been talked about many times. We're hoping to expand back to 16 teams as we used to be back in the day. For next year, I'm hoping that happens. I think we're going to have to replace a couple people from this year, unfortunately. But it's only 4 teams ever make the playoffs in our league. So it's kind of, if you just making the playoffs is quite an accomplishment. I mean, even if you don't win them or whatever, it's, you spend the whole year, searching the waiver wire and reading prospect lists and doing all these things to try to build a squad and, making trades, of which there was honestly not a whole lot of trades this year. At least not around the deadline. And we just kind of keep doing it endlessly. So I wanted to ask you about, why do you do things, right? And pretty much everybody, has the same answer. It's like, I like baseball, and this is an outgrowth of that, and it's kind of a, I know I'm personally always after the origin story. And I think most of us have probably been lifelong fans. I mean, are you not a lifelong fan, more or less?
I'm totally a lifelong fan. I can communicate with my dad in basically 2 ways: talking about politics and talking about baseball.
Oh, geez.
I'm the eldest of 4.
Uh-huh.
And my dad bought back in the 80s a satellite dish, the ones where you had the transponders, I think they were called.
Yeah, the big huge ones that stood. So they were like
tuned to
they stood on their own, right?
Yeah. They had to tune into a specific satellite, and
okay. All right. Well, technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that, Juan. That was me.
No, it's okay.
My children hog all the internet. I think that happens in both of our houses. My children are using the internet, and when everybody uses the internet at once, this happens. And so I don't want to be Ted Cruz and blame the kids the way that he blamed the kids for his trip to Cancun while Texas was while their electricity grid had
freezing
collapsed.
to death.
I'm basically doing that, so I'm no better than that guy. Sorry about that. All right, you were saying you communicate with your dad about basically you can communicate with him in either baseball or politics. Baseball, much more fun.
I'm the eldest of 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically agree on those 2 subjects. And as a kid, he got this satellite dish, the ones where you pointed to the satellite to the transponder.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to watch the famous networks, the WGN, the TBS. Mm-hmm. Of course, I saw a lot of Cubs games, a lot of Braves games.
Everybody did.
And I don't know exactly how I got to watch Orioles games. Mm-hmm. But I became a huge fan of Cal Ripken, and I played baseball briefly when I was in the 3rd grade. I was I had like 8 years, 9 years. I don't know which grade that is. And I was terrible at it. Terrible at it.
Yeah.
I basically got on base 2 ways: being hit by pitch, and somehow the pitching, stopped performing and walking me,
Yeah, walks.
So, but that didn't deter me from being a huge lifelong baseball fan. And there maybe was a period when I was in college, where I started dating or trying to date, and I kind of just only watched the World Series, But then I think it was 2000, 2001, something like that, I started doing fantasy, and since then, I mean, it's my gateway to the game properly.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. It's I know. Do you consider yourself like any sort of fan of the teams that are geographically closer to you, like the Astros or the Rangers? Or, I mean,
I
it's
like them
still.
both. I like them both.
I mean, the Rangers are
Both.
not a lot of fun to watch at this point in time, but
No, no, they're hopefully better times are coming.
yeah,
And I like to travel to see the new stadium, the Globe Park. I don't remember what it's called.
Globe
Globe
Life
Life.
Park, I want to say.
Yeah,
I think
something like that.
corporate
I've
sponsor
been
park.
told.
Yeah,
Yes, I've been told that from outside it looks like a giant Home Depot or something like that.
right. No, yeah, I have heard that. It was on
But the
Twitter.
field looks great, and in
Mhm.
Houston, Minute Maid is great. It's a
Minute
great
Maid. Yeah.
park. The problem with Houston is it's the weather. I mean, it's I mean, too humid, too hot, and
Yeah. Well, that was the point of
but
the Astrodome, right? Was that it was too
yeah,
hot to play baseball, so
yes,
they built the dome, which was space age at the time, and then at some point, then they wanted what was greener on the other. Well, maybe not green, but greener on the other side, and
yes,
went back to the. Yeah. Does it? I forget. Does Minute Maid have a retractable roof or something?
yes. It has a
Okay, so that helps a
retractable.
little bit,
Yeah,
probably. I know they have
yeah.
that in Arizona as well. I mean, you need
They
it,
should have.
right?
They should have.
So.
The last time I went to a game was the Astros championship year.
Mhm.
No, no, wait. It was 2000, yeah, 2017.
Okay.
Um, I went
So
to
four
game
years
one,
ago.
I think. No,
Four
it
years
was
ago.
game two, I think. Yeah, it was game two when Carlos Correa
Hmm.
hit I think it was a double that scored Altuve all the way from first. That Gary
Hmm.
Sanchez dropped, and the Minute Maid went wild. It was a great game, and the best thing about it was that I got to the park,
Hmm.
and I texted Kevin Goldstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like, "Hey man, are you going to be available for grabbing a beer later or something like that?"
Yeah.
And immediately the 4G or 3G, I don't know what it was, started with issues because when you're in a very public in a place where there's a lot of people, the internet kind of starts to get wonky, right?
Yeah.
So
That's true.
I didn't get connection, so I left my phone alone. We were walking towards our seat, and I decided I needed to use the bathroom. So I went with my brother, and I told my brother, "I'm going to see you in the seat. I'm going to the bathroom." And
Okay.
immediately I turned right, and there was Kevin Goldstein walking towards me. It was insane.
Really?
It was like Kevin. Hey, we did
Okay.
a nice hug,
I
and we talked briefly. We talked briefly about the team. About it was great seeing each other,
you
and
had to
we
walk
couldn't
up
get.
to him and say, "I'm Juan," right? Like, I mean, I know we'll talk about how the two of you knew each other in a minute, but
Oh yeah,
I mean, he
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know your face, right?
No, no, yeah. We
Okay.
I met him
Oh, you met him.
precisely. Yeah,
Okay.
precisely in Dallas, in
Oh, okay.
Arlington. Sorry, in
Okay.
Arlington.
Okay. Okay. So you had met
Uh,
him. I didn't. Okay. I didn't
Later,
realize.
yes,
Okay.
and it was a hell of a coincidence.
Wow.
But it was great. It was the last game I went. I'm dying to see a baseball game live again. I mean, it's a
Sure.
great atmosphere. It is great. The greatest atmosphere for me. So
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe next year. Maybe next year we can do like an event, an opening fantasy dynasty league event in
Ooh, yeah.
some I don't know
Oh my
consensed
goodness.
ballpark and
We are so far flung. That would be amazing. I mean, people are just everywhere, all over. Obviously, we have several people in Ohio, but there's a lot of there's a lot of other places. So
it
maybe
would.
we
I
should
mean,
all maybe
it's nice to dream.
we should all just fly to Geelong, right, in Australia. So I think that's probably what we should do. So
Yeah, yeah. To be fair,
it
you may
go
think
to the
so.
Australian Baseball League where they draw a crowd of.
Getting aside, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. So okay, okay. So we had a couple things to backfill here. So Kevin Goldstein, of course. I mean, I know that most of the people listening to this are members of our fantasy baseball league, so they know who Kevin Goldstein is. But he and Jason Parks had a podcast, the Up and In Baseball Podcast, ran from 2010 to 2012, and they both got jobs and quit the podcast, baseball jobs. Jason Parks now works for the Diamondbacks, but he's worked for several teams. Kevin worked for the Astros until a year ago. He, I won't say was implicated in the scandal that overtook the Astros, but he wasn't. I don't think it just really doesn't sound like he was a direct part of it. He just says he doesn't, But the point is, he left the Astros. I don't think because of that he's contracted, and he went back to being in media for Fangraphs. So. And now it's been great to see. And I've been meaning, I'm gearing up to this. Once this podcast series is complete, then I will be able to show this to Kevin.
You should totally do it, man.
Now you should interview him. Well, I should try, right? I mean, I feel bad because I haven't actually been listening to his new podcast. I've only listened to 3 episodes of it. It's so long. It's 3 hours long, and I've got them all piled up. And I'm at least gonna listen to the one with Jake and Jordan, which I know is there in the stack somewhere. And they're great podcasts. I just don't have I don't know. So I got too many podcasts. I love podcasts. So, but
I got too many kids, man.
Yeah, well, I work. I stand behind where I'm sitting now. I stand here at this other monitor over here all day long and work like crazy, and and I try to keep the podcast on, but it's Sure. Plus, I've got kind of a thing for true crime podcasts, so not murdery stuff, but like missing persons, and I get into you get into a true crime type series, and it grabs a hold of you, and you cannot get away from it till it's over. So I think I actually am more likely to listen to baseball podcasts in the off season, believe it or not. So because you don't have there's nothing happening to focus on. So you should recommend a true crime podcast for me. I really don't. I like to listen to one. Okay. But I've never listened to. Okay. I wouldn't know where to start. Okay. Well, I'll do that, and then we'll. I want to talk about. I was going to get to you being interviewed on the Up and In podcast. So let me do that. So, just so everybody can follow, because I hate editing these things. But a couple of great true crime podcasts, if you're interested. The ones that seem to be getting the biggest listenership. There's a school of true crime podcasts that love to focus on serial killers. And for me personally, that is just not, I am not particularly interested in exploring the minds of insane people who murder other people. So that isn't where the fun is for me. So there are podcasts out there that are, very popular that focus on that kind of thing. I tend to like the stuff that is more about like mysteries, people who disappear, what happened to this person, kind of following the clues and so on. One of the best known ones is called Up and Vanished. And it's in the middle of its 3rd or 4th season, and it's a different case each season. Another one is called To Live and Die in LA, which just finished its 2nd season. These are missing persons cases, and sometimes you find the answer at the end. I'm going to type this on the chat so I won't forget them. Okay, yeah, To Live and Die in LA. That is hosted by Neil Strauss, who's a writer for Rolling Stone. Up and Vanished is run out of Atlanta, and it also, if you have the Oxygen network on your cable, there was an Up and Vanished TV show for a period of time where they cover the same cases that they cover in the podcast. So those are 2. There are others. There's a lot of them, but those are both great, and they kind of keep you coming back. One other podcast I definitely want to recommend. And I hope I haven't talked about this on the podcast before, but and I know this one this one I just think is about a really unique subject. It's also a mystery. And it is called Wind of Change. And Wind of Change, that's a song by the Scorpions. Right? You familiar with it? It's about, yes, it's about the Berlin Wall. This Wind of Change is about Germany after the Berlin Wall came down, and now they're together again. The Scorpions were from West Germany. They loved freedom and democracy or whatever, and they sang Rock You Like a Hurricane, the Scorpions.
Sure.
They're still around. I mean, they're in their 60s or 70s now. They're still around. And this podcast involves a writer who has a friend who used to work for the CIA. And of course, he can't give the guy's name, and the guy won't talk on tape or anything. But apparently there was a rumor in the CIA at one time that the song Wind of Change was written or commissioned by the CIA to help foment regime change in Germany. And that it was somehow funded or provided by the US government to the band, so that they would kind of do this like psyops kind of work, having a hit song with whistling about everybody being happy and together about the wall coming down. And so then he sets out to find out, was the Wind of Change written by the CIA? And they go through this whole thing about, is this something that the CIA would even do? What have they tried to do in the past? And then at the end, the culmination of it in the last episode is he goes to a hotel conference room somewhere in Germany, I can't remember where, and interviews Klaus, the lead singer of the Scorpions. And says, "Hey, I heard this crazy rumor." So, and I'll leave it there. I'm not going to tell you what happens after that. But it's really great. It's really great.
Definitely do it.
I know you're kind of a music guy. So
I saw the Scorpions live. They came to Monterrey, and
they toured. They have toured around the world like crazy. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of backstory about because, real quick, Wind of Change was I guess the Scorpions at some point they went and played a concert in the late 80s in the Soviet Union with a bunch of other metal bands. In fact, they interview like the guitarist from Skid Row, and they talk about Motley Crue, and they talk about all these other bands that were there at this festival. And then at some point, as it's described in the lyrics to Wind of Change, they like are on some sort of riverboat, and they go and they sail up the river to the thing. And it's like, it's in the song. I mean, you can look at the lyrics. I'm not going to bring them up right now, but and so that was the origin story for the song. And the guy's like, well, gee, that seems like but they talk about, and they talk about how the like Motley Crue were apparently a bunch of selfish jerks, but the Scorpions were really great with the people. They were really kind of politicians, and they were just, they were pros basically, because they'd been doing this for, a long time at that point, and they could never stopped. Anyway, so I know I've gotten off on a big tangent about Wind of Change, but it's one of my favorite podcasts, and I've tried to recommend it. I even recommended it to a couple of my punk rock loving friends, just because, it gives a whole new, a song that was kind of this sort of, goofy, not goofy, but I mean, it's a power ballad, you know what I mean?
But it was huge.
And it was huge. It was not as huge in America as it was around the world, but around the world, it's by far the band's best known song. I do remember hearing it in the United States, but it was not quite as big of a deal then, because it was about something outside the United States. And as you know, Americans aren't real knowledgeable or interested in those things. So it's just the way they are. So, anyway, so those are three for you. I got way off it, but so let's get back to the Up and In podcast, because obviously this league, the Up and In Dynasty League, exists because of the Up and In podcast that a lot of us were fans of. You at some point started listening to the Up and In podcast. It was kind of a minor phenomenon on the internet because it was a baseball podcast. I mean, podcasts were newer in the early 10s. But this was a different kind of baseball podcast, because these guys were kind of insiders, and they talked about baseball, but it was in a much different way. It wasn't fans. It wasn't, like people on the radio, the way that you they would talk about baseball on, sports talk radio or something. They're not taking calls. They're not, talking from a fan's perspective. They were, like they're talking about prospects and they're talking about like the inner workings of the game. And it's kind of this sort of, I know it's become an expression, but it's inside baseball stuff. And so it kind of caught on. And at some point you found this and you emailed them. And next thing you know, you're being interviewed. So tell me about that.
It was one of the biggest surprises I've in my life, aside from I'm pregnant with twins.
Yeah. That's always surprising.
It was a time in Monterrey where the narco-related violence was really, really heavy, and our routines got very simplified. You basically drove to work and then drove back to home. Basically, that was your life. You couldn't go to. It was dangerous to go to places, and eventually it got so bad that a casino was attacked, and 50 some people died, and
oh my goodness.
Okay. It got really, really bad. I mean, it's a problem in Mexico because I'm gonna say maybe something a little stupid, but you kind of understand it if you watch the second Christopher Nolan Batman movie, The Dark Knight.
Okay.
Philosophy wise, because that movie basically says that the police, the armed forces, have to obey the rules, and they will always have a disadvantage over organized crime, because organized crime can do whatever they want, and basically that's the problem right here. You can have trained policemen, you can have the army on the streets, but they have to obey some laws, and the cartels, they don't have to obey anything, and the cartels can get weapons from shady dealers in the U.S. and the armed forces. They of course they procure weapons, but they have to do it with legal terms and so forth. So there's always that disadvantage.
Okay. That makes sense.
Organized crime will always be one step ahead, and those years I'm talking about 2009 to 2012 were really terrible for Monterrey. And in my routine of driving to home and back to work and back to home, I used to listen to weekly to the opening podcast, and I don't know how it happened, but I don't remember what was the subject. It was about, I think it was Chile. Yeah, it was about Cincinnati, Chile. It was it was the episodes.
My hometown of Cincinnati's. Okay, all right. A lot of Cincinnati, Chile takes a lot of heat on the internet. Go ahead.
What Skyline? What's the term Skyline? What does it mean? It's a restaurant? Or?
Oh, Skyline is a restaurant chain. Yeah, it's the largest restaurant chain that serves Cincinnati, Chile. Basically, there are other ones, but they're generally smaller. Skyline used to be only in Cincinnati, but it's now probably over 100 restaurants. It goes like we have them here in Columbus, which is 2 hours away. We have them here, all over town. There's 5 or 6 of them. It's not exactly McDonald's, but it's become almost a regional. I mean, they've gone to other states, but it's slower going outside of Ohio for some reason. So.
Well, it was the episode, sorry, where Kevin was saying that Cincinnati, Chile was good, and Jason was having none of it.
Right.
Jason being from Texas.
Jason is a Texan. That's his brand.
Yeah. So I don't know why I I dreamt in a dream. It came to me that I should write an email to Kevin to the podcast, uh, saying that Jason was correct. Because imagine if you take the essence of something, uh, for example, Big Black songs. You know, Kevin's a huge
Right. Big
punk fan.
Black. Yeah. 80s punk
The
band
Steve
fronted by
Albini, the
Steve
Steve
Albini.
Albini, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and have those songs played by a chamber quartet or something like that. I mean, it
Okay.
would be weird, right? It would be weird.
Well, I
And
mean,
so I woke up and I was driving and I was thinking about it. And
but you
I
could
got
probably
to,
also hear the chamber quartet play Big Black songs like in a Target or something somewhere. And you might not necessarily know unless you knew the Big Black songs, right? Anyway, go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got to work and I wrote the email, and obviously I expected nothing. And then hours later, like a reply from Kevin, and
Mm-hmm.
no, sorry, no. Next week they read my email in an episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I freaked out, and Kevin said in the episode, please contact us because maybe we'd like to hear from you, because in the email I mentioned that we were, like dodging bullets, and which wasn't an exaggeration. There
Right.
was a time where they openly fired into the public. They
Mm-hmm.
were they hung
Mm-hmm.
people, sorry,
They hung people.
from
Yeah, that was in the
bridges.
media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
Mm-hmm.
it was a
Yeah,
terrible
that was in
time.
the media. Yeah.
Yeah, terrible time. And
Yeah. It's just,
and precisely what you said about the U.S. media maybe not covering the events as they should be covered. That's what he wanted to know. He
yeah.
wanted some info on the drug situation in northern Mexico,
Yeah.
from a direct account, and not what CNN said or something like that. So I emailed him, and we I got invited to be a listener of the week, and it was great. It was
Mm-hmm.
one of the happiest things I've ever done.
And it was episode, I think it's 54. It's either 54 or 64. I mean, the
Something like
episodes,
that.
if you
Yeah.
can find them they're out there on the internet. You have to kind of search a little bit, but they are there. I know
Yes.
because I downloaded them all. And just because I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, they're all annotated. So it's in there.
Yes.
You can read it in the, but yeah, I mean, I may have mentioned this before. I did write them an email that they read. But
Yes.
it was about JRPGs. So just because I was asking, well, I asked two questions. One was about JRPGs, because Kevin would occasionally make references to those.
Yes.
And I'm not a huge JRPG guy, but I have played a few, so and then the other thing, I was asking if Jason had ever played pro ball, because he talked like someone who had played the game, and it turns out that he hadn't played it past high school, but I thought that was something they had never mentioned. And so yeah, so they read it. I don't remember what episode that was, but I mean, it was just they weren't about to interview me, so right. So at the time, like you said, 2009 to 2012, there were stories in the US media about the cartels going against the government. The government was trying to kind of, establish the upper hand on the cartels, and the cartels, of course, don't want that. And so there were some stories and such. There were some of that was more sensationalistic, like some innocent American tourists went to Puerto Vallarta on vacation, and they, drove into town and to go to the mall, and then they got, taken hostage, and terrible things happened. Some of it was like that. And as I told you before we started recording, Puerto Vallarta is where I took my honeymoon in 2010. And
It's a very
I
nice
can't
place.
remember. I can't remember if I had read the story before I went on honeymoon or after, but it was, as it turns out, where we were staying was right next to the airport. And, we did actually go into town once, but it was on like a chartered bus. So, I mean, it wasn't, I don't think it was not, but I mean, when you're on your
danger.
honeymoon, you don't really need to leave the resort. So it's,
It's like the movie. Did you see the movie Babel?
Which one?
Babel, like the tower, like Babel Tower.
I've heard the name, but I have not seen it. No.
It's by Alejandro González Iñárritu, the guy from
Hmm.
damn, I forgot
The name's
the
familiar.
names.
Yeah.
The Michael Keaton movie, the Birdman.
Right. I was going to
And
say he won an Oscar, right? For
yeah,
that. Yeah.
for Birdman and for the DiCaprio, The Revenant, I think it's called.
The Revenant. Right.
Uh,
Okay. I have not seen those,
he,
but I remember I usually watch the Oscars. So
well, Babel is like I don't know, like four stories in one, and one of
Mhm.
the stories is Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett trying to save their marriage with a trip to, I think it was Morocco or something like that, where they
Okay.
get attacked by terrorists. And I'm like, well, why would you try to save your marriage going to, I don't know, like Chihuahua or some, very, very problematic part of the drug thing in Mexico? Well, I mean, don't do that. Try not to do it.
Well,
There are
right.
safest places in the world.
Right. I mean,
But
that's
but but Puerto Vallarta was fine. You were never really in danger, believe
no.
me.
And I know, they were, I think, the majority of American tourists go to, they're either going to Cancun, or my parent. I remember when I was a kid, my parents went to Cozumel one year.
Hmm.
And then, or they're going on the West Coast, they're going to Puerto Vallarta or Cabo San Lucas.
Yes.
And, that those places are not the same as the places that, where it's like characterizing America by, the Gulf Coast of Florida, or um, I'm trying to think of some other areas that are like mostly for, the Gulf Coast of Florida is a big one.
Of course.
Well, the other side of Florida too, for that matter. It's the middle part of Florida that you generally are.
Of course.
I have plenty of family who are native Floridians, by the way, so I'm allowed to
Oh,
say
that's
this,
great.
right? I'm kidding,
Totally.
but no, it's a joke. But Florida's been in the news a lot in the last year and a half for all of their unique attitudes about how to deal with the problems that we all face. So
Yeah.
right, but so yeah, so I mean, it was just so you told me that you told me before that even though at some point the media stopped highlighting the battle between the government and the cartels, but you told me that it really has not ever gone away. I
No.
mean, I think most adults understand that just because a media narrative stops doesn't mean that whatever the narrative is about stops. It's not front and center as much. Um,
The sad thing is that you get used to it. I
mm,
mean, I remember in the episode where I was the listener of the week,
mhm.
uh, Jason said something to the effect of, I mean, it's tough because it's where you live, it's where your family is from,
Right,
and
right,
sure, you have the choice to go away, to go to somewhere safer, but it's tough, saying goodbye to that.
yeah,
Obviously, we haven't said goodbye. We still live here,
hmm
and you get like you get used to it. You get
and
desensitized,
you've
and
lived in Monterey your whole life, am I right?
yeah, yeah, my whole life.
Yeah,
And it's not it's something that it shouldn't be okay to live with, but I mean, but it
mm,
is after so much bloodshed. I mean, we see in the news that I don't know. 100,000 victims have been shot. I'm making numbers up, this last
goodness.
government, this last 2 or 3 years, and you go like, yeah, it's business as usual, and it shouldn't be. But the thing with that problem, with the drug problem, is that basically it's about a product, right? I mean, it's like when prohibition was in the U.S. I mean, it was alcohol, which now is legal.
Right.
Um, uh, imagine how it feels when the president of your country, in this case, the president of our country, when he declares war on all drugs and starts fighting all the cartels. And the strategy, of course, governing is very hard. I mean, I'm not
Absolutely.
I'm
It is
gonna
hard.
be how you say I'm gonna say you don't second guess the president because it's a very very tough job. But
Sure. Absolutely.
the strategy of attacking the big cartels and apprehending or killing the top cartel leaders. Uh, Obviously, they don't pack their things and go, well, they killed our leader, so let's go home. Obviously,
Right.
they break up into a lot of new competing bands or cartels, sorry. And the problem gets much worse because where you started fighting against 4 cartels, right now there are maybe 10 or 11 cartels, to say a number, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's very difficult because the product has demand all over the world.
Oh yeah.
The U.S. is a huge client for the cartels, and that's not going away.
And we're talking mostly about cocaine or heroin or both or other things.
I recently heard a podcast. I'm gonna recommend. I'm gonna plug it if that's okay.
Go ahead.
It's called Econ Talk by Ross Roberts. Ross Roberts is an economist, and he talks about a lot of subjects. And he recently had an author called Sam Quinones, who wrote first. He wrote about the Mexican side of the. I don't remember the name of the book, but he wrote about the Mexican side of the drug trade. And now I think the new book is about the opioid problem. But basically, the biggest product that the Mexican cartels sell right now is the methamphetamines and all that stuff.
Meth,
because it's all the lab stuff is much more cheaper to produce. And of course, you don't need like acres of poppy seeds or marijuana or whatever. No? The synthesized stuff is much more cheaper for them and a better product for them to offer. So imagine, obviously that stuff is way too heavy, but imagine how it feels when your president says we're gonna go to a war for all drugs, and then they started decriminalizing marijuana in the U.S., which I personally approve because I don't think marijuana is a bad product.
Right.
I also do not vouch for it. I mean, don't say no to drugs and all of that. But
I mean, I'm not a frequent user, but I lived in Oregon for 10 years. And one of the last times I voted in Oregon before I moved back to my native Ohio was to fully legalize marijuana. So I voted yes, and then I moved away. And here in Ohio, it's not recreationally legal. And so, if you want things, then you have to get somebody to go to Michigan up to the north or to some other place, and so, but I do believe that in my lifetime, it will be legal in most, if not all of the United States and probably most other places. I mean, it's already legal many other places, but
that's the thing. I mean, if you think about it, it's not like a religious ideology or something like that, where people like dying because I know my God is better than yours, etc. It's a product. It's a product that may be legal in a couple of decades. I don't know. Maybe in a couple of decades, cocaine and heroin will be, made safer, and a lot of people died because of those problems, right?
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, I think you can make an argument. I mean, you always hear, especially with marijuana, at least you hear it connected to alcohol. That alcohol causes way more deaths and causes way more pain and suffering. And yet it's, perfectly legal as long as you're of an age and you can buy it basically anywhere. More or less. I mean, there's obviously some regulation, but. And so what's the difference or whatever, that the sort of the stigmas that were placed on things get in the way. And I don't think that the majority of people, I do think that a lot of people have realized that the war on drugs is kind of, it's that it, in the 1980s, it was different. It was the era of just say no, right, with Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, and that good people don't ever use drugs, and they need to fight drugs whenever they have, and so it's a very black and white issue. And that I think most people realize that this whole war on drugs thing is much more complicated than that. But yes, obviously you're also, you are dealing with substances that destroy lives. I mean, heroin, having lived in the Pacific Northwest, heroin is a very big problem there. There's, that, and then, legal things like opioids, which have caused a great deal of pain and suffering and whatever in the Midwest where I live now. So, and you've got states, different states suing the drug companies that make the opioids, and trying to get money out of them. And they've been successful, at least getting settlements. So, at what point, I think it's, I don't necessarily think that you're going to see, legal heroin at the grocery store or anything like that. But, and I'm not suggesting that that's a good idea, but, I think I think a lot of people have realized or will realize that this is okay and this is not okay, that a lot of that doesn't really make any sense, like on the facts of it. And so I don't know what the exact prescription should be, but it seems kind of, and as I'm sure politicians are very leery of taking any sort of pro legalization stance.
Oh no, of course.
Or even
tough stand.
Or even de-escalating the war on drugs, even if you say, well, because it's this whole, it's an industry. The war itself is an industry,
Sure, it's a business.
And it's such a complicated issue. I don't pretend to know. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that here in the United States, most of what we hear in the media about Mexico is either about drug cartels or it's about the border.
Yeah.
And that's most of what you hear. I mean, Donald Trump made a whole lot of political hay out of the, out of trying to make Mexicans seem like bad people.
Bad hombres.
Yeah, bad hombres. And, I mean, it was just, and that was just really, and as I'm sure many folks of Mexican and other Hispanic descent in the United States even bought into some of that message, like we're the good ones and they're the bad ones. And I mean, it's just the whole thing was just a really cynical exercise. And the problem is that it kind of worked.
Yeah, but I'm here to change this perspective.
You are.
I have you. And I have you to thank for, man. No.
Why is that?
Mexico is a beautiful place. I mean, you should definitely try.
I have no doubt. I wish I had heard.
Try to go to Ciudad de Mexico, to DF. It was called DF for Distrito Federal, but now it's called Ciudad de Mexico, City of Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very complex city. But it's an amazing city, culture-wise, anything-wise. I mean, the beach tourism is great, obviously, but
oh yeah, I mean,
if you go to Ciudad de Mexico, you go to Guadalajara. I make fun of Monterrey because Monterrey is too it's too Texan for my taste.
It's too Texan.
Yeah,
some
it's way
cowboy
too
hats and
Texan.
stuff.
No, yeah, totally. It's way too Texan, and the
Oh,
wealthiest
geez.
part,
That's funny.
of Nuevo León, which is the state whose capital is Monterrey. The wealthy, some of the wealthy people would love to, annex to Texas and be like, the new San Antonio. If there are similarities between Monterrey and San Antonio,
I'm sure.
and that's not necessarily a good thing. But I mean, but it's my hometown, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised about the quality of life here in Mexico. There of course there's some perspective. No, how do you say? A lot of people think it's arid desert stuff and a lot of poverty, and there is a lot of poverty, obviously.
There's a lot of poverty in
Uh,
American cities too, by the way.
exactly,
It's not
exactly. I
like
mean,
it's
and
any
it's
different.
yeah.
Right.
There's a lot
No.
of wealth inequality, not just in this part of
Right.
the world.
And
Uh,
it's getting
but
worse in the United States at an even more rapid rate than before too. So,
well, there you go.
like there's this assumption, I think, among a lot of Americans that, um, that we don't have the kind of poverty that other places have. And
Hmm.
I don't think that's true anymore. I mean, especially now, I mean, before as well, but also now. And I just, you know, I feel very fortunate that I was able to do. I'm not referring to my honeymoon in Puerto Vallarta as real world travel. By the way, I've been able to travel and go to some other places in my
Hmm.
life, and that is something that I recommend for everyone. That it is really important that you go out and see some other places. And I'm not pretending to be an expert. I mean, I've been a few places. I haven't been everywhere. I haven't, lived abroad or anything like that. It's just, but um, you cannot draw conclusions about a place based solely on just whatever you see on the evening news or
Of course.
what
Yeah.
you cannot do that. It's never a good idea. You know, it's like, I mean, it's not just Mexico. There are other countries that get a similar treatment. I mean, I think if you asked a lot of Americans about, a place like the Middle East, you would get a lot of, most of what you hear about the Middle East is, oh, there's terrorists, oh, there's this, there's that. I
Yes.
mean, there are hundreds of millions of people who have wonderful lives living in the Middle East. You know what I mean? I mean,
Exactly.
it's the same, and it's not. I just it's important not to not to draw conclusions from stuff like that. I mean, the news is important. I know we talked about this in our previous interview that didn't record, so I want to ask you the question again about the media difference. But yeah, this is not meant to be anything cracking on the media. I mean, it's just that you only get a certain perspective. That's it.
Hmm.
And so it's I don't know what else to I don't know how much more traveling I'm going to get to do in the rest of my life. I mean, I'm kind of stuck here with, like my wife and I talk about how we want to take our kids to Europe and stuff someday, or take them to some, but I mean, it's like I feel like it's something that people need to do when they have the chance.
Yes.
Obviously, when you have a worldwide global pandemic, it's cuts into that
It's
a little bit.
really
And,
tough. Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to go on a plane again, I think you were traveling for work. You've been traveling for work this year, right? Like, or you were,
Yeah,
um,
I flew to San Antonio,
yeah.
to Austin. Well, to San Antonio, and then went to Austin 3 times this year.
Yeah. I know it's hard to imagine for a lot of people, at least I mean, I was not traveling for work that much. It's only a couple times a year, but, just in general, I know, I mean, I have lots of friends and neighbors and family members and stuff who have been on planes and stuff and have been traveled, but, I really can't wait to get back to a point where I could even consider it again. Because, I want to make sure my kids get some exposure to other places, and, because this is not the center of the world. This is not the center of civilization. Um,
Sure.
no one place is. So anyway, it's you have I know I remember you telling me before that you actually appreciated I know I've spent a lot of time in this chat cracking on the media, and I don't do that for fun. I actually love media. I mean, I majored in media in college. Like I wanted to be part of it at some point. But you were telling me about the difference between Mexican and U.S. media before. And I thought that was really interesting. So would you mind going over it again? And it's recording now.
Sure. Well, the U.S. media, I think right now is very polarized. Super, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about two entirely separate spheres of two entirely separate sets of priorities and truths. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah, and here in Mexico, there's a lot of new media because there was a governing political party which basically ruled Mexico for 70 something years. The PRI, the Partido Revolución Institucional, the Institutional Revolutionary Party, and by the 60s, 70s, they had all the control of the media. It was very difficult to get any sort of diverging opinion on politics because it was basically state-controlled media, but not but in other ways, but due to corruption and all of that. This political party got voted out in the year 2000. It was 2000, I think, and but maybe before that, I think maybe since 1994. There's been a new outlets and
technology came along.
Yes, and technology and some other divergent views and sort of the thing.
Technology is responsible for a lot of bad things in the world, but one good thing that it's responsible for is that it creates access that was not there before for different voices. And I still believe that even now, after all this cynicism that comes from social media filling people's heads with crap. Anyway, go ahead.
And if you have all these, new outlets, I mean, you can't buy them all. I mean, you can corrupt them all.
It's true. It's whack-a-mole.
I'm not gonna say they're perfect. They're not. I mean, they usually, like every media, they follow agendas and there's a lot of bias, of course. You really do have to choose your correct outlet or set of political journalists and the type.
It's tough.
But you do have different points of view. Where in the U.S. you get right now, I think, two kind of flavors, which is the red flavor and the blue flavor, and there are, of course, some well, I'm not going to say far right, but some rightish media here, and some leftish, some that have clearly those political biases, but they're not that not that destructive of each other, like the you guys are seeing right now, which they're really vicious. I think.
Well, it's for-profit media. They have an audience, and they have to keep that audience coming back. So they tell them things. The right likes. Well, actually, both sides like to make their respective audience mad, telling them things that will make them mad, so that then they want to hear more. So
yes,
I for example, most of the last the 4 years that Trump was in the White House. I watched a lot. Well, I especially watched a lot of CNN during when the pandemic was going on, because it was like I must have information about this thing that is imprisoning me in my house. and making my son go to first grade on the computer, and so, it's like you have no other choice but to, and, it was, and after the regime change, as messy as it was, one of the first things I did was I stopped watching CNN, because it's like I was kind of, partly because it was like, okay, I just want to ignore this stuff again. I want to have broadly speaking, I want to have mildly competent people in office. I don't have to worry about them tweeting ridiculous shit all the time. I just can ignore the government, and it can do government things with my money. But also I was tired of being made mad by this, by my main televised media. It's not that I would never consume anything else, but and the problem is that outrage means eyeballs, and that's the yes. I think in a lot of countries where the media is, you hear that term state-run media. State-run media has some advantages too. Obviously it has disadvantages, but it has advantages too, that, there's this assumption that you need to have independent media, but the problem is independent media needs to get its money from somewhere.
Of course.
Cue the outrage. Outrage is profitable. And we have this channel. It's on, I don't have broadcast cable anymore, but I have YouTube TV, which is the same thing except streaming, right? And there's this channel on there called News Nation. It's newer. And their whole thing is that it's supposed to be apolitical. It's completely not left. It's not right. It's not anything. And it's just supposed to be just the facts, and you decide. And I know that that's the slogan of the right-leaning network. And I could get that they co-opted that, but this is supposed to be actually, and of course, if you were to Google it, you'd see how, this person who works there said this thing one time that was not fair. And what's funny about it? This totally, like, kind of anodyne, not controversial, anything. No one watches it. No one. Its ratings are like this. And it's been going for like a year. No one wants to watch it because it doesn't make anybody angry.
Yeah, who cares about facts, right? Facts are not sexy.
Yeah. My in-laws are conservative politically. My family is not. Although they are not mega liberals, that's, but and they're religious folks. They're pretty, they're conservative Christians, and they've been that their whole life. And so my wife is kind of the one that left the nest a little bit. So, but they made a big thing about how, no, we're not watching Fox News in our house anymore. We're going to watch this channel that comes with their cable system. It's called Spectrum News. And it's basically like, it's supposed to be very like basic, just the facts news. And it's a little bit like this News Nation thing. I was like, and we had to spend the weekend at their house a couple months ago, so we were having our floor resurfaced, and you don't want to, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to fall asleep in a house where I'm smelling floor surface. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Am I going to wake up? So we went there for the weekend, and they turn on this Spectrum News, and I swear I almost fell asleep right in the chair. It's just like the most basic crap, like, here's a story about, these worms are eating people's lawns. No, isn't that terrible? And it's like, well, and if you looked at my lawn right now, there's a bunch of spots that have been torn up by these. I think they're grubs, is what they are. I'm glad you had a story about it, but you know what? I'm not angry. It's not making me angry. I'm already angry about the grubs. But it's just all this really basic stuff. And then they had a story about the political gerrymandering. Gerrymandering, you know what gerrymandering is, right? I wasn't
it's
sure.
Where you kind of change the boundaries of.
Right, you draw the districts in a certain way.
Yes.
To favor one party. Okay, I wasn't sure if that term was like a slang term, or if it was I just wasn't sure if that had found its way.
It's unique for you guys, because we don't. Yeah. Well, we do have something similar, but not as heavy as you guys.
So they had a story about that on this Spectrum News, and it was like I have a particular opinion of gerrymandering. I live in a state that's very gerrymandered to favor the party that I generally don't support. So basically that party gets to hold power until either like everything changes, which is not something that happens very often, or it's redrawn to not be that way. And of course, the other side can't get that because they can't get anybody in office. So, and I have an opinion about that. And I'm watching this story and I'm getting mad, but it's because everything is portrayed as equal. Whenever there's different viewpoints, they're portrayed as exactly equal. One is not better than the other. It's like, okay, this person says this, and this person is totally full of shit, by the way. I'm just an example. And the other person says something, and that person is using facts or things that I believe are correct. Same thing, right? And it's like, and they're presented as equal. This sort of both sidesism. And I get mad because that's really not good journalism. You're supposed to have a perspective and pursue the truth, whatever you see it to be. And so I'm getting mad watching the boring news. And the whole point of the boring news is to not make you mad, because that's, we want to do something that's more, just the fact. And so anyway, so there's just no winning, basically. There's no perfect. People are going to have a range of views, and there's just nothing. It's I don't know what all you can really do is keep differing perspectives in mind, and just, you're going to have a perspective. You're a person. You have biases. You have opinions. Anyway, I blabbered on about. I'm sorry, I blabbered. But I think about this a lot. Guys, I'm sorry.
What I notice about you guys is, this is just my observation. Obviously, you can take it with a huge grain of salt. You guys are more prone to respecting authority. The U.S. population. Really? I'm gonna super generalize here, so bear with me. You guys are much more respectful of your authorities. Traditionally, Mexicans. We're very distrustful. For example, and there's this basic example where
why are they so distrustful? Do you think?
Well, maybe I think it's because of this governing 70-year party that you really couldn't take it seriously, because they were basically a dictatorship with different heads, with different presidents, but it was the same ideology, same type of control, and you get a little cynical. Well, at least my generation. I don't know how the new kids, the new guys are doing, but my generation, which I saw from my parents, is you're a little bit cynical, or not a little bit.
That makes perfect sense
cynical
to me. Yeah.
So it there's a perfect example where, for example, you are a teenager here in Monterrey, and we can buy alcohol when we're 18.
Okay.
We get a head start on
that should be the case here, but it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally. It was totally fine. And I'm not going to say I did it. Maybe some of my friends did it, of course. But you could, grab a beer and drive, which is totally wrong. But people could do that. And there was a police officer, and it was like, maybe I did it. But you weren't like really respectful of his authority. But if you drove to Texas, and you saw a police officer, you would behave instantly as a Mexican. For example, it was very common for watching cars pass, and they were eating a sandwich or something, and then just throw the trash away
out the
in
window.
The street. And you go to Texas, and the same guy who did that in Mexico would of course never do that in Texas because of the authority thing. So I think it's tough for the U.S. Population
Mm-hmm.
to see the networks. You have big television networks, which of course you respect. So only take ridiculous stances
Mm-hmm.
and maybe being overly manipulative. Some people, of course, just eat it up. Of other people, get weary and stop trusting it. But Mexicans are like, we always saw the TV guys as clowns. There's actually a clown, a comedian who had a character. He characterized a clown, and now he is a big political analyst, and he does political commentary dressed as a clown. And
That's
it's not
funny.
even a thing. It's not even a thing anymore. It's like his name is called Broso, and Broso is not
Just
a thing anymore. It's been forever. All my life he's there, and it's okay. And of course, the actor tries to get in his political agenda, but it's a show. It's all ridiculous. I
Mhm.
think we're all as Mexicans, generalizing, of course, we're kind of cynical and weary about it. And you guys are much more intense in your truth-seeking activities. And when you're being lied
Yeah.
to,
Hmm.
it's tough. I mean, it could be heartbreaking. I totally get it. I mean, that's my point of view.
No, that's great. I mean, the thing is if you asked Americans about this, it's wired into our like whole nation creation myth. The
Mhm.
British were mean and were trying to tax us because we were colonies, and that's what you do when you're the imperial power. You tax you tax the colonies. That's what they're there for. They're subjects of the crown, and we didn't like the taxes, and we wanted to, and so we threw the tea into Boston Harbor, and we raised an army, and we fought back against those jerks. And it's part of this whole thing that we love free. We wanted to be free. We love freedom, and we also wouldn't have won the war without the French. But anyway, right? Without the French, we
Yeah.
get squashed. Anyway, I took my sophomore year in college, where I went to a state school. I didn't go anywhere fancy. I took a class about the American Revolution, where basically college history courses are basically, oh, that thing you learned about in high school or junior high, that wasn't really how it was. It was like, the American Revolution was neither American nor a revolution. Discuss. No, but the whole point is that we spent the whole class learning about how the actual revolution was really just the aristocrats in America, who had previously been aristocrats in Britain, wanted to basically, they didn't want to take orders from the aristocrats in Britain. They wanted to make their own. They wanted to tax the peasantry themselves. So they just, it was kind of a lateral move. Anyway, my point is that most Americans would probably tell you that sort of freedom, throwing off the yoke of tyranny thing is part of our thing. And that's a fascinating perspective to hear. You're definitely right that police, especially law enforcement, have a stigma attached that is different. Part of that is because in popular media for so long, up until these last couple of years, which I'll get to in a second, there's so many police shows on TV, so many, the police are the warriors of justice, and they can, they always find the truth. They're always right. Now, obviously real life is a good deal more complicated than that. One of the themes of just about every true crime podcast about this, a missing person or someone that's never found, is that they claim that the police messed up, the investigation, or they just didn't bother to try hard enough, or they did everything wrong. Like it's a hard and it's a thankless job. And I'm
Yes.
not, but that one of the things that I think was positive about the last, especially the stuff that happened last year with George Floyd and so on, was that I think it got there were a lot of Americans, mostly white older ones, who we're not really aware that different types of people are treated differently by the police. And so that became now a mainstream belief that I don't think really can be denied. I mean, you might agree or disagree with, I mean, I can, I drive down the street here in this area where I live, and, there's someone who lives down the road from me flying one of the special flags that looks like the American flag, but it's all black and white stripes, and then it's got one blue stripe, and it's like the thin blue line or whatever. It's like the kind of a pro-police thing. It's usually something that you see hanging off the house of an actual, a member of law enforcement. I mean, there's that kind of stuff, and so it's, it's proven yet another point of division for people. Should the police, because obviously there are some people in America that watch some of those, the demonstrations and stuff on television, and, kind of wanted the police to go out and mow them down. I mean, obviously I don't think that was something that everyone thought, obviously, but it was, there are differing points of view on it. So now it's become another point of division, but so that is fractured a little bit, that perception of, but then again, it's hard for me to understand, because, I haven't, in general, white folks generally don't have the same things to fear from running afoul of the police as other folks do here. I mean, so yeah. I can't, I didn't, and I think that the last couple of years have really underlined that for people here. And it's, you've seen on the local level in a lot of places, they've said, the police aren't allowed to choke people anymore. I mean, you'd think you wouldn't have to make a rule about that would just generally not be a good idea, but, or that they, you can't just, some of the higher profile incidences where people, people got their house, police busted into somebody's house and it was the wrong person, and they, shot somebody who was innocent, or, all those kinds of things. I think hopefully it also leads to some level of demilitarization. I'm not going to say defund. That's not the right term. No. That's a term that was weaponized in the media. Just, doing smarter things than just buying bigger and bigger guns, or whatever, that somehow is going to make things better. I think it's pretty clear that it's not. Now, I don't know if, then again, I don't live in an area where we have, the government forces fighting with the cartels. So, I mean, or anything. I mean, that does exist here, obviously, but not where I live. So it's hard to, I mean, there might be different solutions for different places, and I don't know what the solutions are. So I'm going to shut up.
It's very, it's very hard.
These are complicated things.
In Mexico, being a police officer is super, super hard because the pay is really awful. And basically you risk your life and your family's life for a very, very low salary. And of course, there's always organized crime that can bribe a police officer with twice his salary just to say something, right? It's a very immoral situation, and the stuff they face. I mean, it's easy to just write them off as complicit with the cartels or as corrupt prone, but I mean it's really unfair to have a low paying salary and having a disproportionate amount of risk daily, and then on top of that, being offered bribes or being threatened by organized crime if you don't accept the bribes.
I couldn't imagine.
There's a saying which I'm going to try to translate. It's called plata or plomo, plata, silver or lead, in which a cartel approaches you and they give you silver. I mean, they give you money. They offer you money, and if you don't take it, then they give you lead. You know, they wipe you out. So this, of course,
Wow.
this gets
Yeah.
replicated in municipalities
Hmm.
and at the state level, and obviously at the federal level. So it's very law enforcement in Mexico is very problematic for that. And we actually have the army in the streets right now, which is a huge thing because a lot of people don't want the army in the street. The army should be, you know, doing other things, but
Hmm.
the army is the only law enforcement corps that has the technology and you know, the general wherewithal to combat these
Hmm.
these super cartels, right? So it's a really bad situation, and it hasn't gotten in any way better. This is in no way an attack on the current president. It's an impossible job. I mean, you if you have demand for a product pays that pays very good, and then you give them better weapons than your law enforcement officers. I mean, it will
Hmm.
always be tough, and it's not a simple solution like,
No.
okay, let's
Yeah.
legalize drugs. I mean, it's not that easy. So yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
no. I mean, you could say tomorrow we're ending the war on drugs and all this stuff is now legal. I mean, it's that I don't think that's something that I mean that's not a that's not
no.
that
I mean,
realistic. Well, so obviously it's not something that there's an easy answer for. Um, I am curious though. I will ask this, and I'm not going to answer it myself because I don't know what the answer is. Believe me. What
mhm.
would be what if you were suddenly the president and this was something you had to deal with? What would be the first thing that you did to try to just the first thing? Would it
This
be
could be the
pay?
start of my political career.
Would it be
So thank you,
paying police
thank you
officers
for the
better,
opportunity.
or would
Yeah, definitely,
something
definitely. I
different?
mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, we do live under capitalism.
Yeah.
Mexico is a free market. Uh, Obviously, there is great wealth inequality. Uh, there's not much that can be done about it because it's a system, and it's a market-based system, and it works. Um,
Yeah.
and of course, state budgets are very limited, and there are a lot of
Hmm.
needs.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be president to answer your question,
No.
but gun to my
Yeah.
head, if I was a president, yeah,
Just the first thing.
I would help the law enforcement officers
Hmm.
with better options, with better options,
Okay.
with more incentives, with taking care of their families if something bad happens. I mean, obviously it's done right now,
Hmm.
but I don't know, maybe do it with more uh, bigger in order of magnitude or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but
Okay.
either, but still, even doing that, state resources are very finite. And I'm not saying that organized crime resources are infinite, but definitely they don't have to respect any rules, so they can get richer by selling more of their product, right? So the disadvantage will always be there.
Hmm. Hmm.
The first thing I would do will be that. The second thing I would do is very naively, if you want to call it, but I would make it an education problem and not a security problem. I mean, let's treat the drug problem uh, in the family. Start uh, from the bottom up in the schools, in the family, about about educating and like alcohol. I mean,
Hmm.
alcohol's been around for a long time right now, and everybody knows you can get drunk anytime you want, and they regulate alcohol, and it's been working for a lot of time right now. Uh, there's all this education as kids we get that makes us understand that alcohol may be a thing later on, but should be wary of it. Maybe do that with drugs,
Yeah.
and not let it be like if you get caught with an ounce of marijuana, you get thrown in jail for 3 years or something like that. Or let it be more like something you should teach in your homes and in your schools, and not with weapons in the streets and all that. But of course, that sounds terribly naive, and most probably
Yeah.
I would be assassinated. I would be an assassinated president. So yeah,
Oh,
maybe maybe I
oh, geez.
maybe
It's
fantasy baseball is more my thing
well, hey,
in the
you are the
future.
dictator of your fantasy baseball team. I mean, yeah, you have some rules that, but I mean, you get to, we joke about that like, in fantasy baseball, the players don't talk back, right? I mean, they don't
Sure,
say,
that's
I'm
true.
unhappy and I want to be traded. They don't say that. So, I mean, if they become free agents in real life, they become free agents in our league, but
Yes.
that's, um, it's interesting that you point to the low pay of police officers is what makes it a career that's tough. Here, I would say that gets applied to teachers more than anything. The teachers don't get paid enough, and police officers. I mean, police officer, I think is viewed as a hazardous career, depending on where you're a police officer. But it's not because of the pay necessarily. I mean, it's not, you don't get rich on a police officer's salary, but it's, you get paid better than you do if you're teaching most of the time. I'm speaking generally. So that's interesting. I mean, as far as the other stuff, I mean, I've always personally thought, and maybe this is why I vote the way that I do, is that educational opportunities are everything.
Yes.
And if you can bring educational opportunities, I mean, you can't make someone take advantage of the opportunity. You can't make them go get a college degree and get a job in an office if they won't go. I mean, obviously you can't make someone, but if that is an option to them, it's for example, there's, and I won't want to get into this too much, but there, right now our current government is trying to pass a big bill with all these different social program expansions in it. And it just is announced that it got nixed from the bill, 2 free years of community college. Community college is not, it's probably doesn't have the same economic value as a 4-year college, but it has some value for sure.
Of course.
There are a lot of very respectable careers that you can get to from that. And there was going to be 2 years of tuition free of that in the bill, and now it's out for various reasons, probably related to money. And it's like that should have been one of the number one priorities of, I mean, that's really the only way that someone who grows up, poor without any resources, it's really the only way that they can get out of that, and aspire to be part of the the middle class or the working, wherever, somewhere above.
Of course.
I mean, what's the other way? The other way is to, do what happened, as like we were talking before, get involved in something illegal, get involved. I mean, that's another way out, and that's,
yes.
So, but if you have real opportunity, and obviously it takes time and not everybody is able to pull it off. Not everybody's good at school. Not everybody's willing to go. Not everybody, but if you have that opportunity and it's an option for you, then, it's hope versus not having hope. And I just think that would be, that's the kind of thing that a government should be doing. And it's the kind of thing that our government doesn't do enough of. So again, that's probably pretty naive, but
no, but it's true. I mean, that's basically the thing right here, that fuels the cartels. Just imagine from just imagine a kid from a poor region here in Monterrey. Let's stay in Monterrey,
Mhm.
and the parents can make a huge sacrifice and keep the kid in school, and the kid has to, grind it all the way to college or to a community college kind of
Mhm.
setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that there
And
aren't
if
good
he,
jobs of. It's not that there aren't good jobs available without going to college, but the facts are the facts. If you go to college,
yeah,
you on average will do better in your career on average. I'm sorry,
exactly.
go ahead. I just wanted to make that clear
Imagine
that
that,
you can get jobs without it.
of course. Imagine
I
our
understand
our
that.
our, uh, our hypothetical kid grinding it out to college,
Mhm.
graduating, and getting such a low paid job, even with a degree,
Mhm.
uh, where the temptation of illegal easy money is
Mhm.
always there.
Mhm.
There are a lot of kids right now that this is a thing right now. When I was a kid, there wasn't that much exposure to drugs. I mean, the thing we did when we were teenagers was alcohol. Basically, we
Mhm.
would get drunk out of our
Yeah.
minds, but we would get drunk. And right now, the drug is in the streets. I mean, it's a reality. I mean, the need for consumption and for them to offer this product is so intense that it's in the streets very easily right now.
Mhm.
So there are kids that enjoy marijuana
Mhm.
and they would like to buy marijuana regularly, and the only way they can get money to buy marijuana is by selling marijuana, and it's this vicious circle. Obviously, I'm talking about the poverty cases that just fuels the cartels. I mean, it's sure they live short, intense lives, but they always have a pool of a human resource, to say it
Mhm.
like that, always available.
Mhm.
It's the biggest problem, I think, in Mexico.
I mean, the salary's pretty impressive. The benefits package kind of shitty, but
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
the HR, like you said, the HR department maybe not the greatest. But
Yeah,
oh man. Anyway, I shouldn't be making light of
tough.
this. But
No, it's
I
okay.
just
It's okay.
I'm trying to imagine that just as like, okay, what are my career options? Yeah. So, and I know that yeah, I just, I wasn't it's hard to understand that, if you I don't know. I was raised to believe in the power of education. I work in the
Hmm.
education sector now. For a company, not a, I'm not a teacher, but and it just, I think if people are offered good options that are legal, you know, they're going to take them. Most people will take those over the 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 easy money with the terrible benefits package.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think that is true most of the time.
we
And
we agree on that. Totally.
so, so this sort of version 2.0 of our interview has covered even more heavy topics than version 1.0. We didn't even get to the
Let's.
stuff about the border, which was also, and I didn't want to leave that out. I know we're kind of switching gears, but I didn't want to leave that out, and I know this is kind of running a little later, so I just but the this stuff about the border has become this big political, well, it's not become, it's been a political issue in the United States now for a while, and it's because it's being used as a kind of a wedge issue by the right wing. um,
Sure.
and there's no easy, again, it's something with no easy solution. You've got people fleeing, a lot of them are fleeing bad situations elsewhere. And so why don't you, I don't know where to, so for a typical American who is watches the news and sees, oh geez, there's all sorts of people trying to come across the border.
Hmm.
What why are they doing that, and what's the, just explain to that person who is also kind of me, because I don't pretend to be an expert on this stuff. Just give me the opposite perspective on that. Not opposite, but just the perspective from the other side. Not other side. You know what I mean?
Well,
there's no way for me to say it. Sorry.
I'd like to start with something that maybe you guys are not very aware. But
yes, please do.
Let's imagine the United States up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we share a long border with you guys from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Yep.
And then Mexico is shaped like, this way. And we get to the peninsula, the Yucatan Peninsula, and we have our border with Guatemala and Belize.
Right.
But it's a much smaller territory.
Right.
Well, the Mexican border with Guatemala and with Belize is much more brutal than the U.S. I mean, the Mexicans are much more brutal to the immigrants than
to the Central Americans,
patrol guys. Yeah.
Okay.
That's something not a lot of people know.
Okay.
There is a lot of brutality going on in Mexico against the immigrants.
Okay.
But the reality of the situation is the American dream. I mean, it's still the case that you can go to the United States and make a great living, and with opportunities. I mean, much better opportunities that in the Latin American countries, all because of, not all because, but heavily influenced because of the political systems. I think, I don't want to sound like super confident or anything, but I think we're in a good place in Mexico right now, politically wise. The president is left-leaning, but there have been alternates of power. I mean, we kicked the 70-year-old party out, and then the right-wingers came, and then the 72-year party won again, and now the left won. And I mean, this sort of alternance has been very positive to political discourse and to in itself to political life. But I can say the same thing about Central American countries or South American countries, especially Central American countries. There are some countries that some political systems that are progressive and good, and there are some like authoritarian evil things that
right.
If you live in Honduras, for example, maybe Honduras is not the greatest example. But if you live in a situation
like El Salvador
where,
is especially
for example,
rough,
it's much better to risk your life going to the U.S. and where your biggest problem will be border patrol and maybe ICE. ICE, it's called, the guys who
ICE,
police.
ICE. It's an acronym, ICE, but I mean, it's often pronounced ICE just because it also,
I mean,
immigration. Shoot, I can't remember what it stands for. I don't want to Google it right now, but immigration something.
But to live with that risk of traveling up north and then let that be your problem, it's very heavy to prefer that problem than staying in your crime complicit country or
right
to put it that way. So yes, the American dream is still a thing. The money is real. The opportunities are real. If someone who goes to work legally in the U.S. Earning dollars can send back money to their parents, to their families.
Send it back.
And just by the exchange rate, I mean, it's very, very beneficial.
Sure.
So that is something you guys should never take for granted. I mean, the
Right.
American dream is a real thing, still is a real thing, and it's something that you that makes you very proud, and you should be proud of that. I mean, it is still a land of opportunity, and who can say no to that if your conditions are, terrible? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
That's
where the Trump thing was kind of cool, because they
right.
sent them away to live to their deaths, basically. And I get it, and I get that
Yeah.
I can get the point of view that they take jobs away, and of course uh, there is nationalism and all these things.
Right.
It's a complex situation.
That used to be it, that they would come here and take our jobs,
Hmm.
and our industrial jobs, especially. Um,
Hmm.
it's morphed a little bit in the last 10 or 15 years. Um, I mean, companies still outsource jobs. Now they're outsourcing them more to places like India and China
Yes.
and so on. But back in the 90s with NAFTA, right? They're going to build all the Ford cars in Mexico.
Yes.
Um, and but I feel like people have started to here have come around to the idea that people coming into the country to work, and in the case of most of the Mexicans that come, they don't stay forever. They stay for a few years, they work, and then they go back to Mexico, and they
Hmm.
save the money, like you said, or they wire it back to their families.
Hmm.
They're doing it. Sorry, I bumped my computer. They're doing it for they're doing it for the economic opportunity, and it's not that
Yes.
it's not about taking jobs away from Americans. It's not that it's just a simple matter of dollars and cents, and that's where the opportunity
Yes.
is. So you have to go there, and um, I think that's why what was being done more recently to make it a political issue was you had Trump out there saying, "Oh, the Mexicans are, they're going to commit crimes, they're going to kill people, they're going to do terrible things." When I don't think the crime rate is. In fact, I think I've even read that it's actually lower among undocumented. I'm speaking specifically about undocumented folks. They were trying to
Sure.
pin that on that undocumented folks are actually commit less crimes than citizens. Um, I don't know if that's true. Okay, I could swear I've seen that before. But the folks that come here to work for because of the opportunity, they're not here to. They didn't come here with like, I'm going to come commit some crimes. That's not.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
that's not why they're
Exactly.
coming here. Like it's most people don't want to commit crimes,
Yeah.
any of any kind. So I just don't. It was really, and so that's why it was a more insidious thing, because it really was more about like it was more about kind of stoking these kind of racism, you know,
Yeah.
and it was
It,
just
which
really
was some.
painful to
It was
watch somebody
unfortunate.
push on television.
Exactly. I think it was unfortunate because the United States is like the melting pot. I mean, where a lot of cultures collaborated and made this great big beautiful country, and to like forget that part and 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 say no immigrants should come over because they destroy our culture. I mean, that's I think it's personal opinion, of course. It's your identity. I mean, that's why you are great in the first place. Like, that's why a city like New York is great in the first place. Um,
Well,
but
now
yeah,
no
I
one can
mean,
afford to live there is the problem.
yeah,
I want to say
yeah,
I read a story about how some percentage of the apartments in downtown New York City, the fancy part, that like that there nobody lives in them. They're just like owned by like
yeah,
Russian and Chinese business moguls, and they're either like Airbnbs or they're like nobody really lives in them. They're just kind of it's a status symbol, and so like there's not actually anybody. I don't know, but I don't know if that's really
it's totally true. Some of the wealthier people here in Monterrey have these wealthy apartments in the Upper West Side or something like that. It is true. It
New
is true.
York's not the only
And
place I've heard
they
that
obviously
about.
go there. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
London, I've heard that about London too. So, I mean, I don't know, I don't assume just because I see something one place that that's true, but, so yeah, I think so anyway, so what I was going to say was, I think that's one of the things that a lot of, especially white Americans who have, you know, uh, lived in a place like Central Ohio or some other similar sort of place or their whole lives, is that they don't understand it. So what they see on TV, they see, people try to cross the border and then they're rounded up by the border patrol. And again, during the Trump administration, especially, they were, separating the children from their families as this punitive action, which is the part that is the worst, is that they were doing it deliberately to try to deter people from coming across. And that's the part that I think most Americans, even a lot of Republicans, don't. I mean, it's just cruel. It's not something you can support. And they, but people don't understand. It's like, well, why would they do that? Why would they? It's like you were saying, like many folks are fleeing something worse. They're fleeing, gang violence or, all the different, problems. And so it just, that when your situation is so bad that possibly dealing with being rounded up by border patrol and having your children, detained somewhere, when that's preferable to your other options, that's the part I think a lot of folks here don't understand. They haven't stopped to think about that. Most people are rational actors. They're going to, the options that they have, they're going to choose the one that they think is the best, whether that's, going to college, and some people may choose, selling drugs instead, or they could try to do both. I don't know, but it's it's the same. I mean, they're right. You're doing what you think is the wisest thing to do, even though you may have a different perspective or a different moral compass or whatever it is. And it's I don't know. There's no. I don't even want to try to solve that. I mean, it's not a solvable issue. I mean, people. In politics here, the right always brands the left as, they want to have open borders. They want to let everyone in and not even check. And then all those foreigners will come in and do terrible things. I mean, and it's so, but that kind of stuff, believe it or not, that stuff works on some people, and I wish it didn't, because, this is why politics is the worst.
Yeah, man.
And and so maybe that's why. I mean, even if you, like you were saying, you'd only talk to your dad about politics and baseball, and even if you agree on politics, baseball is a lot more fun to talk about. Right? I mean, it's, you can, was it, sports are kind of I remember, again, in another one of those left-leaning college classes that I took at my state university. I mean, you wonder why the right hates universities so much, right? It's because, I learned all about what democratic socialism is from my sociology 101 course at my state university too. And I didn't know what it was. Now I do. I'm not a democratic socialist, but I'm just, I know what it is. This idea that sports are a way to reinforce the status quo in society by basically distracting people. And let's get them focused on sports. Let's get them watching the soccer match, or let's get them, in watching the baseball or something, and so then they're not out making signs and preparing to take to the streets.
Yeah, that's a huge thing here with football, with soccer.
Yeah,
it's the real opium of the Mexican mass.
I meant to ask you this before, and I never really did. Is it really how big really is baseball among Mexicans? I mean, like among your colleagues and friends. I mean,
No, it's become a niche thing. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's football is life.
Mm-hmm.
There's this Mexican player, I think, in Ted Lasso, which says football is life.
Right.
Yes,
Danny Rojas. Yeah.
yeah,
I love Ted
and
Lasso. Yeah.
basically it's a huge business here in Mexico,
Sure.
and I think for example, here in Monterrey we have two teams, the Rayados and the Tigres,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's more animosity right there than political animosity. Right, really. I mean,
Right.
they're very, very passionate. And
Yeah.
baseball does not even have a little speck of passion
Oh, okay.
in the
I was.
in the general public.
Is it
I mean, if
is it
when
number two then behind soccer, or is it lower than number two?
soccer is like number one, then huge gap,
Yeah.
like I
Okay.
mean, like a tremendous
Yeah.
abysmal gap,
Yeah.
and then maybe baseball, maybe
Okay.
baseball.
So it's like how
Football,
Ohio State college football is here where I live, where it's number one and number two and number three and number four.
yeah,
And then we have
basically,
pro soccer and hockey teams. They're fighting it out for like number five.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay.
There is no real. There is a basketball league. It's very, very small.
Okay. Yeah.
There is a college football league, which has the college thing going on for them. I mean, they draw crowds and stuff.
Oh, you mean
But
when you say college football, do you mean American football or soccer?
yeah,
I'm sorry. I just
no,
want to make sure.
American,
Oh,
American
wow.
football.
Oh, okay. That I
Yeah,
didn't know. Okay.
yeah.
Wow. I just find it interesting.
But it's
American
not that. I
football is
mean,
a terrible sport.
it,
I do watch it, and I mean, but I told my son has. I've been throwing the football with my son a lot lately, and I'm like, buddy, we can throw this all you want, but you're not allowed to play. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I actually drafted a fantasy football league this year
Oh yeah,
because
first time.
No,
Oh,
I've done it a few times before, but I have this void right now which needs to be filled with I don't know what's anything.
something. Yeah.
I did a football and a
Yeah.
basketball, and but I don't know anything. I did follow your advice on the Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer. I think it's the head coach.
Yes. He Urban Meyer. He
Yeah.
was coach of the Ohio State team here. The team that I was talking about is the king, right? Of one of the biggest, most powerful teams in college football. And then he left that job and took the job in the NFL, and things have not gone all that well.
He was groping women, right, or something like that.
Yes. Well, so let me tell the story really quick. Okay. Well, first of all, so the Jaguars have not historically been a very successful team. Okay.
Yes.
They're owned by a gentleman who owns one of the. I don't think it's the Premier League, but it's one of the lower leagues in England. Owns a football club in England, and so there was always talk. The NFL would always talk about how they might relocate or they might move a franchise to Europe, and the idea was they got this guy to own the Jaguars because they kind of want to move him to they want to move him to London basically. That hasn't happened yet for a variety of reasons, but anyway, in Florida, nobody cares about pro sports. It's all about college sports. It's all about college football with the Florida. There's Florida State, there's Miami, there's and that's a much bigger deal, and nobody really cares about the pro football. I mean, I guess people care about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got Tom Brady, the most famous quarterback in modern NFL history, and won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That got them a little bit of interest, I think. But before that, the Buccaneers were like with occasional exceptions, were basically a doormat of a team for much of the time.
I remember.
They had been good in the past, but not often, right? And so, and then Jacksonville's like the smallest market in the NFL, besides maybe Green Bay and the Packers, and that's a special case because a lot of people love the Packers. They just happen to be in a small city. And so like nobody cares about this team. They're kind of this blank slate. They have this weird these teal uniforms. I personally don't care for teal. You can like it or dislike it. I think I probably made fun of teal at the time. It's teal. It's very 1990s. Anyway, so Urban Meyer takes the job. He leaves this area where he's like king of the area. He'd won the national championship in college football. Goes to the Jaguars. They are the worst team in the league last year, the worst. They got the number 1 draft pick, so they got the best college quarterback. And then he lost the first few games of the season this year, and they came to Cincinnati to play my team, the Bengals. The Bengals beat them, and the Bengals are generally not that good. So I mean that, and so, well, Urban Meyer owns a restaurant here in Columbus, so 2 hours away, and he came up to the restaurant. It's this big, giant, fancy sports bar, and it's decorated with all this Ohio State stuff. It's about 15 minutes from my house. I've been there, and I went in there just to see what it was like. And so he goes there, and and then at some point, he drank a whole bunch of margaritas, and somebody took video of a young woman dancing, kind of grinding on him, more or less, and this went up on the internet and was, he's a married man. He's kind of this sort of, kind of portrays himself as this, most of these college football coaches are they're just like, I'm the moral authority type of attitude,
sure.
Which is ridiculous. They coach a sport. You know what I mean? Anyway, so we shouldn't be making role models out of them any more than we would the players themselves. Right. So anyway, so it was just really embarrassing for everybody. Like I was trying to explain this to my father-in-law, as I said, who's a religious man. And I was like, yeah, this isn't so good. And he's like, well, what is it? And I was like, trying to explain it in terms that are not, I was like, it was a woman who wasn't his wife. And, she was like young enough to be his daughter. I mean, he's in his 50s. She was like 22. So it was just a really uncomfortable situation. And frankly, I thought he was going to be fired. But because the Jaguars, the owner, who is a very, very rich man, even for a football team owner, gave him a whole lot of money. You don't want to cut bait so quick, basically. So he didn't lose his job, yes. But they had to it was really embarrassing. And his wife quit Twitter because people were like, Twitter. I felt yes. Bad for her, but well, she was also spreading vaccine misinformation, so it wasn't such a bad thing that she left Twitter. But anyway,
Jesus.
Yeah, I know. She was she was a lecturer at Ohio State as a nurse too. Anyway, so the point is, it's a messy situation. The Jaguars won a game. They won one, so that's good. Eventually, if he lost enough games, he would lose his job, no matter how nice of a guy he was or not nice.
Of course.
They did win a game, just one. And so I don't know what's going to happen necessarily. There's a long history of these very successful college football coaches try to go to the NFL because they're going to go to the next level up, and then they can't succeed in that professional environment where, in college, the teams that have the most access to talent, it's all about recruiting. In the pros, of course, all the teams have kind of the same amount of money because pro football is remarkably socialist. They spread the money around very evenly, and everybody fights over the best talent, so you can't just go in and recruit all the best players and, now we win all the games, so I'm the best coach in the world. You see what I'm saying? They don't. everybody has equal access to talent. So, and some teams might be better or worse at it than at developing the talent, or they might be better or worse at drafting the right players. But it's a much harder thing to be successful in the pros than it is in college, because in college, you know, the big name university has the resources to go out and get whoever they want, basically. So, and it's just it's a long running tradition for these very successful college coaches to struggle in the pros and
struggle and fail.
Yeah, and I mean, but as a successful college coach, when you're kind of king of your little area, I mean, I understand the allure to say, "Oh, I'm going to go succeed in the pros now." You know, you want to you want to shoot your shot. You know what I mean? But a lot of them fail, and this might very well happen to Urban Meyer. And I'm not necessarily rooting for him or against him. I mean, I felt really bad when because it was embarrassing, and I think a lot of people here took it very personally because everybody's so invested in this thing. I mean, the last coach that Ohio State had before Urban Meyer lost his job because the players were because college athletes, well, until now. Back then, you weren't allowed to get paid because you were an amateur, right? And
they changed that recently, right?
Yes. Well, they changed it so now you can do like endorsements and stuff. You don't get paid to be a college athlete, but you can do endorsements if somebody wants to pay you to do a commercial for their product or whatever. You can, broadly speaking, you can. Yeah. No, it's actually a big plus. For them, because those athletes, you know, the institutions make millions off of these athletes, and the athletes get, you know, they get an education. Well, some of them do, but anyway, some of them do, and some of them kind of are just there to play football. That's just the facts.
Sure.
Anyway, some of them get an education they would have never otherwise gotten, and that's awesome, you know. But it's just not the case for everybody. So. Anyway, I'm blabbering again. The last one of the previous OSU coaches that was one of the most successful, who'd also won a national title, lost his job because some of his players were like selling the memorabilia, you know, like the collector's items and stuff that they got. They were selling them for money, you know, or they traded them, like they got tattoos at the tattoo parlor or whatever, and he covered that up. And he lost his job because that was a violation of the rules or whatever. And I mean, that was, you know, just, it's the college sports in this country it's a whole extra 2 hours of conversation that I shouldn't even go into. They commonly refer to the NCAA, which is the organization that governs college sports here, as a cartel, interestingly enough, because it's kind of this, and I don't have the exact reasons why it's a cartel, but they use that word. Isn't that, I don't know. It's fascinating that they use it because it's like this kind of, it's this thing that exists that makes all this money off of this stuff and makes all these rules, but it's not really connected to anything. Anyway. So, so did you actually were following the Jaguars like a little bit, or are you just,
I subscribe to the Defector.
Oh yeah, Defector, formerly Deadspin.
Deadspin, yeah. And they have this chart that shows every game.
I know what you mean.
But it's about
I love Defector. It's great.
How he's feeling or something like that, and basically that's the way I interact with the Jaguars right now. But maybe I really don't watch football, but maybe I'll watch. They're not going to make the playoffs, but
no.
Maybe I'm going to treat myself to a Jaguars game just to see, you know, just to experience.
Yeah.
To have that experience, you know.
They're never boring. The son of the owner of the Jaguars owns a wrestling company, a pro wrestling company that you can watch on TV that I watch sometimes. So they've got that going for them too. It's just a whole little sideshow. And like I said, in a few years, they're probably going to end up in London. So you know.
I'd like to take an opportunity to say hi. I don't know if he'll watch. Of course, he won't watch. Brady Childs.
Oh yeah.
He's a huge wrestling guy.
Yes, he is.
He became like this huge wrestling guy.
Yeah. And, he likes some kind of exotic, like he likes a lot of Japanese wrestling and I have talked, not recently, but I have talked with him about it. You know, I used to watch WWE back. It was really big when I was in college. Like that was during the time when they had the Monday Night Wars and you had the two wrestling companies were head to head all the time.
Of course.
And then the one, WWE won that war, and then so I watched it up until a couple of years ago. In fact, for my when I got engaged, before my wedding, I flew to Phoenix with some of my friends and went to WrestleMania. So
oh man,
this was
great.
It was 2010, 2009, something like that. And so I've been kind of a fan, but I went to a couple of live events or what, and then I watched the AEW is the new company. I watched that on TV. I mean, when you're trapped here in your house for the last 18 months, wrestling. Well, God bless Florida. They made it so that the wrestling companies, both of whom were based in Florida, more or less, they made it because there's a lot of money involved there, and a lot of the wrestlers live in Florida because they don't have income tax, or I think it's income tax, from the state. So the governor, who is kind of this right-wing guy who has done a lot of really dumb things about the virus and vaccines and so on, actually made it so the wrestling companies were exempt from the rules, so they could keep taping shows. And so then, for a while there, as there weren't really a lot of sports on, like last year. Well, wrestling was still on, even though there were no fans. I appreciated that. And so I got into watching it again because there wasn't anything else to watch. What am I supposed to do? So, and so I got back into it, and I'm not going to go to a live event or anything like that, but I mean, I've been recording it at least. So anyway, so Florida's not all bad. See, good for Florida.
You got to take the good with the bad,
Yeah. And I'm not trying to badmouth Florida because I will probably visit there. I mean, I've been visiting there off and on my whole life for vacation, so I'm not going to say anything too bad about it.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to go back. My parents have a place there and stuff. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So I know we've been on for quite a while. I'm probably figure we should probably wrap it up or something here. It's quiet in both of our houses, I can tell. So, I want to thank you for being so loyal to the league and coming back for all these seasons. I mean, I've only been commissioner now for 2 of the 9 years, but
you've done a great job. You've done a great job. I got to recognize
I appreciate
all the jobs you have done. It's not easy. I know it's not easy.
No, I mean, it's a lot of, I feel like people are nice about it mostly. I mean, even though we don't really know each other, all of us don't all know each other personally. We generally get along and stuff. And there's occasionally some people who want to change the rules or want to do, and so, but it's all, so, and, me personally, I'm kind of a details person. So I take it personally when somebody's like, oh, this guy's still on my team and I released him a month ago. And it's like, and I like beat myself up about that because I didn't get it. I didn't get that guy deleted from the sheet. Because you want to cut, Albert Pujols or somebody, so, but I really hope we get a chance to expand. I really hope, everybody will be back for the draft. I was talking about this on the board. There are a couple of owners that I haven't heard from in several months. And I was trying to get in touch with Zach, who has the New York team. I even sent him a tweet. I don't even tweet, but I have an account. I sent him a tweet. I'm like, hey, your fantasy baseball team misses, or your fantasy baseball league misses you. Tweeted him because his Twitter account was active. No response. So I hope we hear from Zach.
Damn.
But knowing how folks are in this league, like once it's time for the draft, everybody will magically come out of the woodwork and they'll be back.
Yeah, the rookie draft is the best.
And everybody loves the draft so much. It's, even though 75% of the guys that you draft are not going to ever make maybe they'll make the major leagues for a minute, they're going to be, or they won't make it at all. And you'll just cut them again. And I think that's fascinating. that's why I think the expansion draft would be so much fun. You have to figure out, who do I protect?
Yes.
Who's the future? Who do I need to hold on to? And as I've talked about this with people, I think I have more than two people who want the expansion teams. Is the problem. They'll throw back the fish they have for the chance at a shinier fish. So anyway,
I just wanna say, I want to mention a transaction that half of the leaf groaned when I did it. That's
okay.
when I nominated Joey Votto and instantly gave you
which was
like
a
millions
beautiful,
of,
wonderful thing that you did.
yes, for you
And
and
that paid off very
everyone.
handsomely.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. That's what I want to say. I didn't. I sensed like they thought it was like a collusion kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no. I mean, I was truly
I'm going to
interested
set
in
him
Joey
right
Votto.
here. I'm going to set my
There you
Joey
go.
Votto bobblehead right here. I won.
I was truly interested in him, and he had a great season. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to, set that thing straight.
Yeah. No,
It worked for both of us.
he's dressed as a superhero right here, as you can see. So, and no, listen. So here's the story really quick. I'll recount it. I drafted Joey Votto in 2013 when our league started. He's my favorite currently playing player, basically. He's, at the team that I root for and stuff in real life. So, and at the time he was drafted, he was signed to a 9-year contract. This contract is, or 10-year contract. It's still going. It won't be up until 2023, till the end of 23. So I knew even in 2013, when I drafted him, that I would probably have to cut him someday, because the way our salaries work, I had to bid a lot of money to get him in the beginning. And of course, in 2013, he was he wasn't the MVP. He wasn't the MVP, but he was in his prime then. And he almost won the MVP. I think it was in 16 or 17. I think it was. He should have won the MVP. He finished second. Anyway. And so I figured, I'm not going to be able to afford this guy at some point down the line. And it's just a matter of how long do I get to hold on to him before I have to cut him. So, I held on to him probably, honestly, a year or two longer than I should have. He had a rough 2019 and not a great 2020, which, that's just truncated year. And so then I was like, all right, I've got to do this now. I can't keep him any longer. And so then when I let him go, and I posted a bunch of stuff on the board, I showed a picture of my bobbleheads. I've got right above my head, I have Vottos. See, here they are right here. I'm never going to eat this. I'm never going to eat this cereal. It just sits on the shelf. It's 10 years old. It's right here. So my whole bobblehead collection's above my head. So, anyway, so, and then you nominated him. Everybody's like, oh, because what that means in our league is that I don't have to pay a penalty. If somebody else wants the player that I've cut, I've got to pay a penalty until his contract is up or he's picked up by another team. So then you put out there and everyone's like, oh, Juan's just kissing up to the commish. Nobody said that, but I feel like that's what they were thinking. And
yes, totally.
Then you got him for a pretty small amount of money. It was like, what, $9? $8?
No, I think
$5?
It was less, but no, that's right, like $8 or $9, something like that.
And that's not a bad gamble on a guy. I mean, a guy who's got, he probably should be in the Hall of Fame when he retires. I don't know if he'll get in right away, but he probably will get in the Hall of Fame in our lifetimes.
I hope so. He's a great and super player.
Then he starts the season. He doesn't hit very well for the first month or two. He's always been a slow starter. And then he has a run in the middle of the year where he hit, what was it? He homered in 7 straight games.
Yes.
And had like a crazy month, or like about a month. I don't know if it was a month. I don't think it fit in the calendar perfectly, but it was, he had like a really big month, and he ended up finishing the season with, how many homers was it? 30, 32, 34. I should really look this up. I stopped counting, but there's a lot of them. In fact, I got to go to a game this year and take my son. And he got his he got his 2000th hit in that game, and he was on the news. And in the background, you could see my brother and I and his son and my son, and we were on TV because of Joey Votto's 2000th hit. So that was pretty cool. I'll talk about that more.
36 homers.
36. Okay, sorry, you're faster than I was. And so that's a really great. And even though he's not, he's definitely striking out more and walking a little bit less. He had to kind of sell out for power a little bit, but he's obviously got such good technique that he can still hit the ball out of the ballpark. Plus, he's hitting in a very hitter friendly park, and it's just been really great to watch. And I think the fans. He used to be under fire a lot from the broadcasters and stuff who was saying, you need to drive in runs, you draw too many walks, stop looking for walks, and you need to, drive in runs. And I think that kind of stuff's largely gone, partially because they changed the broadcast team. The Reds' longtime broadcaster finally retired after God knows how many years. It was time. It was time a few years before it happened. And so now Votto is basically just universally loved by the fans, most of them. And, he seems to really, he's a great interview. He's gotten funnier and funnier as he gets older. Like he used to be a really serious guy who didn't talk very much. And he's turned into like this kind of, like the guy who always says something on, in the media. And they even, when he was on the disabled list this year, they let him broadcast a couple of the games. Like he went to the broadcast booth. That was really neat. And he's like, wow, that was fun. Since he's got 2 more years to play, he can retire. And then I think that would be neat. So anyway, he's Canadian. So he's got this like kind of very understated personality. I don't know. I know I've been going on about Joey Votto. I'm sorry, but I'm really happy that he found a good home. You have him for 2 more years, so I hope he keeps hitting a little bit.
It was $20 production for like half of it.
That was great.
It turned out okay. It turned out great.
There was a risk there picking him up, but he wasn't. I was paying him $65 or so. I mean, I was paying him a huge amount.
It was insane.
It was not going to work. There's only a few players that make that. I mean, I was going to say Mike Trout, but the person who had Mike Trout this year didn't get that kind of money for Mike Trout. And we were talking about this, like the way our salaries work. These players that these young stars like Mookie Betts or Fernando Tatis Jr. that they sign the super max extensions when they're really young still. And so now Fernando Tatis is under contract for, 12 years, 14 years?
Yeah, something like that.
And because of the way the salaries work, when you come up from the minors, you only make a few bucks. And then if he's never a free agent, then even 10 years from now, he's only going to be making $30 and no one will have to cut him. And if he does get cut because he gets injured or whatever, I mean, the guy seems to get injured a lot. He seems like he might be kind of an injury risk in 5 years.
Yes.
If let's say bad things happen and he can't play, someone cuts him, they're going to be paying that penalty for a long time. And so I don't know. It's just, we might need to do something about the way the contracts work. I don't know what that is. Honestly, I have no idea. But
I usually just vote yes for everything. I mean,
I knew there was something I liked about you. No, I'm kidding.
Really. I mean, I'm up for the majority. I mean, why take it so seriously? I mean,
as long as things
is too serious.
As long as things are not drastically out of balance to where it's not fun, or that there's like some way that some killer strategy, like the rules are, they leave a loophole so large, or they make it so that you can only do it one way, and succeed. As long as it's not that kind of unbalanced, a lot of it is really just preferences.
The thing with this league is depth. You need depth. If you don't have depth, injuries will kill you and you will underperform. And
especially pitching.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So
I mean, you
it's
have
a great
minimum
league.
innings.
I mean, it's the best. Really. I mean,
we are going to have, I mean, we'll talk about some rules changes and stuff here over the off season. I don't know. People don't really I feel like they don't really check the Discord that much in the off season. So my brother said I need to send the private messages with an @everyone so that I guess that makes people get notifications. He said if you bump something the wrong way, then you stop getting notifications. And I think that might have happened
that
to
happened
you.
to me.
Yeah.
That happened to me.
So he and I were talking about this. He said, yeah, you just need to occasionally send out something that's an @everyone so that someone will get notified even if they don't have them on.
Yes.
So I'm going to try that. So you'll have to let me know if you get it or not get it. I mean, I don't know. Are you getting them now?
I did get the happy hour first game of the World Series.
Okay. Well,
but
nobody really showed
but
up.
I couldn't go. Yeah, I couldn't get there. The first one was really cool, but I couldn't get there. Yeah.
I thought maybe we could try doing it again if we get to like a game 6 or a game 7. I didn't even check what happened tonight. Like
the Braves won.
The Braves, so they're up 2-1 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe if we get out to like a 6 or a 7, we might try it again and see if we can. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that might actually be water under the bridge by the time I get this edited and up there, because now I got to cut out all that stuff for my router rebooted. But anyway, I know I've taken a lot of your time, and it's almost midnight here.
It's great.
So,
it's great.
At least tomorrow's Saturday. So anyway, so I really appreciate your time. And I appreciate the frank discussion on sensitive issues that normally these interviews are not really about sensitive issues, but we had kind of covered them a little bit before, and it's really interesting to me. So, and so I hope I came across with the utmost respect, because I certainly don't.
Totally. It was a great conversation.
I certainly don't have any I certainly don't have the world's greatest supply of knowledge about these things. So, but it's really great to hear a different perspective on some of this stuff. Everyone should try to expand their world. It can only help you. So that's my PSA for today. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll cut it here, and maybe we could talk again here in the off season. Well, I guess we're technically in the off season, or before next season. And best of luck to you. And
thank you, man.
I'll talk to you soon. All right.
I hope you get a negative COVID test.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you so much. Tomorrow, Saturday. So by the time anybody reads this or sees this, my daughter, God bless her, she is a pistol, as they say. That's what the term my mom would use. She needs that immune system of hers needs to keep functioning just a little bit longer, and then we can get because her school has been fine. So like, if she was going to get it, she's going to get it from my son. So I don't know what kind of I don't know how the situation's been in the school with your twins, but here they have all these dashboards and all this information, but it's pretty clear that a lot of the cases never make it to that information, because for every one that gets reported, there's several that don't.
No, my guys are still at home. We have a hybrid. The school
oh, you do?
offered a hybrid model.
Okay. Yeah, we did that last year.
That are attending, but no, my guys are still at home.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to see if we can fly to San Antonio for the Pfizer vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty soon, I hope. So
it's just approved today for 5 to 11-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can make that thing.
Yeah.
real.
No. Hey, let me know if you get it. I'm curious as to because
Sure.
it's not entirely clear how it's going to be rolled out. So I mean, I don't know. It may, when the vaccines were rolled out for adults, I had to wait. They gave them to the older folks and the first responders and healthcare and stuff. And so like I was very anxious to get it. My wife and I both were, and we had to wait several months. And I even lied about my age so that I could make an appointment ahead of time. I mean, I didn't get the vaccine till I was technically eligible, but like I lied about my age just because I figured the website was not updated or whatever. I mean, so like I was, and you'd hear stories about people who were like bribing people and stuff. I mean, money talks, right? So I don't know how it will roll out. Like with children, I don't know if it'll be phased in a certain way or whatever, but I mean, it just, I think it might be a little bit simpler. It might be a little bit more of a free for all because it's just one group of, they might say like if if the child has a medical condition or something
Most
like
likely,
that.
yeah.
But I don't know. So
that's it.
Yeah, I can tell you that it seems like people are a little more hesitant to have something like this for their kids than they would be for themselves. That's been my general feeling, even between my wife and I, and we're pretty pro vaccines. I mean, she's daughter of a doctor, and like I'm pretty pro science and pro vaccine, and I'm not entirely sure that because of the difference in the way it affects children. So I don't know. It kind of depends.
That is correct. That is true.
It kind of depends on how the results come out, in the field, as it were. So anyway, I'm really rambling now. It's just endless. Anyway, but I hope that's if you guys wanted, if you guys try to go get it, I hope that that's a possibility for you.
The speaking of the border, the Texan border cities are really struggling because the border has been shut, and Laredo, McAllen, Brownsville, all those cities they depend on Mexicans going over shopping. So they're frantic. They're desperate. They offer vaccines for fly to McAllen and we'll give you a shot and please come to the mall or something like that. That's a nice option to have. But yes, you're correct. We gotta wait and see how they roll out the vaccines for the kids. But I'm sure gonna do it. I mean, for me, it's the return to normalcy.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, we could go another 2 hours on what possesses people to say no, I'm not going to get this thing that is proven to, at least of all the data we have, is proven to be amazingly effective and is the right thing to do for the rest of society because of the way this thing is transmitted. How you can transmit it, even though it may not hurt you that much, it might affect your nana or your immunocompromised, neighbor or whatever. The way, I mean, like I kept, over this last week or so, I kept waiting for my son to get sicker, just because, not that I thought he would necessarily, but I knew that he might, because you don't really have any idea, some kids, they have no symptoms at all, and some kids are in bed, can't get up. So, and same with adults, obviously. And it's just kind of, he just never got, he's like, it's pretty clear he was almost completely asymptomatic, and it was just and just the anxiety of that has been hard. That's why I keep getting up at 4 a.m. So I hear him cough or whatever, and it's like, I'm up. I can't go back to sleep. And it's like, oh, he's just coughing because he coughs, sometimes. It's like, no, he's sick. Geez, it's the worst. God, this whole thing is really, it can't be over soon enough. I know that's like Captain Obvious thing to say, but I just really, it's long past time to go back to the way our life was, as much as we can. Long past.
Yeah.
All righty, man.
Thank you so much for the conversation. It was really great.
I really appreciate your time. And maybe we'll do this again. I don't think I'm going to do this for everybody again next year, but maybe, I'd like to try to figure out how to continue the podcast, in the future as well. Once I get through the last couple here. And I just think I've really, I've made it a point to save these files because I feel like they're kind of part of the league history, and
totally.
So, all righty.
Well, you could sell them like NFTs or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I don't know.
I'd like to think that I keep up on these things, but I kind of have drawn the line at NFTs. Like that to me is just the most thunderously pointless thing that
I actually don't understand anything about it, but I mean,
I understand that some people think it's valuable, but they said that about, and is it just a fad, or is it like something like a Bitcoin where you're constantly told how risky it is, but it certainly seems to be making some people a bunch of money. I don't know, man. I don't know what the point is of having these things. I get the idea that, I used to spend all my allowance on baseball cards. What do you care about a piece of cardboard? Somebody says that's worth $20 or whatever. Then NFT, it has no intrinsic value either. But yeah, but at least a baseball card, you can like hold it in your hands. You know what I mean? Right?
Exactly. You can pass it on to your kids, etc.
I understand why people still buy vinyl records, even if I only listen to Spotify and I don't buy music anymore. Like some people want to hold it in their hands. I don't. Anyway, I'm hopelessly. We're only going to fall further and further behind, Juan.
Yeah, way of life.
I don't know. So, no, I'm definitely not going to. I'm not going to transform into some tech bro. That's for sure. It's too late for me.
Yeah, way too late for me.
With that, I'm going to go to bed. I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thank you, man.
All right. Have a good one.